Sensation is raw data. It is the information we receive through our senses. It is linked to our neural systems. It is our bridge through which we move towards perception. Perception is the storyteller. It interprets information from our sensory system. For example, something catches our attention. It is a ripe fruit on a tree. We see it is round and green and red, and it smells fresh, sweet, and fresh. This specific stimulus is provided by our sensory receptors through specialized cells through the process of transduction. Transduction is converting what we experience through our senses into electrical or neural impulses. Transmission is then used to send the signals to the brain where it is processed. Coding is the organization and labeling of sensory information. We provide a word or a code for this object. We call it an apple. After activation, the brain provides a sensory adaptation where the strength to a particular stimulus reduces. It is important to avoid sensory overload. This means you are not suddenly overloaded by the sight and smell of 1,000 ripening apples, the insects around the tree, and the hot sun on your head. Relevant to this is Weber's law, which looks at the threshold of individual sensitivity to stimuli and its ability to distinguish between differing stimuli. Sensation and perception are two separate processes, but are very closely related and intertwined. The brain processes sensory information and uses clues to understand the stimuli. The process of transduction is related to bottom-up processing. Bottom-up processes uses sensory data. Top-down processing is where our brain uses prior knowledge, expectation, and experiences to interpret the sensory data. It fills the gap, making assumptions. For example, we see an apple on the tree. It does not fit into the schema of what we know apples to look like. Bottom-up processing tells it smells like an apple, but it has a strange shape, but it feels and tastes like an apple. Top-down processing tells it it is an apple, just a square one. We have seen similar apples in the supermarket. Identifying the fruit as an apple has acquired the balance between bottom-up inputs and top-down interpretations. There are two ways of measuring the relationship between physical stimuli and the sensation and perception they create. They are qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative data uses data based on a stimuli such as observation, interviews, or questions. Quantitative information is information that can be measured, data that is empirical, that can be counted or measured as numbers. Studies often use both. Quantitative methodologies need to be able to determine absolute or difference threshold. This includes the methods of limit to increasing or decreasing stimuli in a stepped fashion, methods of adjustment which allow a study participant to control the intensity of a stimuli, and methods of constant stimuli where there is multiple stimuli that varies in its intensity and is presented in a random order. It is often presented in experiments called trials.